you're probably already comfortable playing minor major and minor 6 chords, and you can play minor 7 chords with 9s and 11s and use that all over the place. But there's probably one type of minor chord that you're not using a lot, and that's the chord I'm going to talk about in this video. Roughly speaking, we tend to split our minor chords in 2 different sounds. The ones coming out of the major scale and the ones coming out of the melodic minor scale. In this video I'm using A minor as an example, so if I look at the ones coming out of the major scale, A minor could typically be the 2nd or the 3rd degree in a major scale, so if it's the 2nd degree, then that would be A minor 7, D7 to G major. And if it's the 3rd degree, then that could be, so that would be in the key of F, and that could be a progression like this. A minor 7, D7, G minor 7, C7 to F major. And what we have here is that we have an A minor 7 in both cases that's a part of a cadence, and the point of the A minor 7 is to suspend the chord that follows it. The other type of minor chord is where it's coming from melodic minor, and 2 very common examples of this would be where it's the tonic or if it's the 4 minor chord in a major key. So if we take A minor as a tonic, then that could be this type of progression. So B minor 7, E7 to A minor 6. And here of course you can use A minor major as well. And if A minor 6 is a 4 minor chord, then that could be something like this. So A major, A minor 6 to E major 7. So just to sum it up, we have an A minor 7 chord, and of course you can have an 11 or a 9, or that depends on the context and the key, what you can get away with in terms of extensions. And we have an A minor 6 and an A minor major chord, and again you can add extensions to that, taking out the melodic minor scale. And then we have a chord that's kind of in between. So it's an A minor 7 chord, but we have a 13 in it. So that's this sound. And obviously this is coming out of a Dorian scale, because we have it's basically an A minor 7 chord, but we've added a 13 on top of it. And the reason why we're not using it too often, so just to go over that, most of the time when we have A minor 7 chords, they're there to be a part of a cadence, and they're there to suspend a chord. So the point of an A minor 7, in this case, is to move to D7. And the idea is then that we have this G going to an F sharp on the next chord, and that's the point of the chord, kind of. And if we have, so if we have the F sharp on top of that, so that would be something like, then that's really disguising that function of the chord, and it makes it really unclear what's going on, and therefore it doesn't work as well in many contexts. But there are actually a few places where you can use it quite well. You can of course use it, you'll see it in songs where you have sort of a Dorian sound for a longer period of time. So a song like Record a May, or Invitation, or Time Remembered by Bill Evans. And it's also in the Radiohead tune Knives Out, which also Brett Meldau made a version of. So you can check it, there will be places where you can find it used. And you can actually also get away with using it both as a tonic chord and as a 2 chord, but you have to be a little bit careful about it. So let's just go over some examples of how to do that. So if we have to play some examples with the minor 13 chords, we of course need some voicings to do that with. So I'm just going to cover some voicings on the top string set. I'm not really going to go into details on what notes are in there, because I think you can figure that out by yourself. So you can use a minor 13 chord in a 2-5-1. If you check out some Herbie Hancock when he's playing with Miles in the mid-60s, you'll find that he does that really often when they're playing standards. And the idea is then that we're not focusing on the 2-5-1 as sort of a functional progression. We're thinking more of each chord as sort of an island of sound. And then the minor 13 is a really sort of rich, interesting sound that we can use. And you also still make a difference between the chords, because most of the time you'll play from a minor 13 chord to an altered dominant to make it clear that there's a change happening. So some examples of this could sound like this. course you can also use it as a tonic minor chord, and that will sound like this. So that was some examples of how I use minor 13 chords, both as 2 chords but also as tonic minor chords. And as you can tell, you get some really modern sounding progressions, and I think they're sort of nice and surprising sounding, and that's the reason why I use them. You use them as sort of a surprise instead of something that you expect, that your ear expects to be there in the song. And therefore, when you start working on this, you probably want to do it in places where you kind of have some time with each minor chord. So if you have a medium tempo and a whole bar of a minor chord, or maybe a ballad, so you can really sort of dig into how it sounds and get used to it, and then you can better judge where it works, because in a fast 3-6-2-5 in a rhythm change or something, it's not going to have much of an effect, because it kind of needs to sit there so you can really hear sort of the richness of the sound. At least that's how I think about it. If you want to download a PDF of all these examples, then you can go to the article on my website. In that article there's a PDF download, and when you're on my website you can also sign up for my newsletter if you want to stay up to date with the stuff that's happening, if I'm playing somewhere, or if I'm releasing a new lesson in my web store, or something else is happening. If this is the first time you see one of my videos, then please subscribe. I publish a new video every Thursday, and I've been doing this already for 2 years, and all my videos are of course on stuff like this, so they're about chord types and scales and how you use different arpeggios, so really sort of jazz and improvised based topics, and which leads to another thing that I always ask people who are watching these videos: if there's something you want to see a lesson on, then leave a comment. It's always nice to hear what you guys want to hear lessons on, and of course I can't make all types of lessons, and it has to be something that I can sort of fit in this YouTube format, but there are a lot of lessons that I make based on what I hear from you guys. So leave a comment on the video if you have a suggestion, and of course also if you have a question. You can also get in touch with me on social media. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, so connect with me there. That's also a way to get a hold of me if you have a question. That's about it for this week. Thank you for watching, and until next week.